I got all dressed up for the intersection because I've got a big announcement. I am retiring from the United States Supreme Court. I didn't think I was, but Nita Totenberg of NPR overheard something in her rush to compete with liberal independent media and reported that Alito was retiring. Don't worry, Nina. You're going to be fine. Alito will be retiring, I am sure, between now and the next several months. So you just reported something early, even though it may not be true. But I dressed up for another reason. First of all, I got a couple of great guests tonight. We've got Representative Maxwell Frost from the 10th District, a congressional district in Florida, who's an expert about a couple of things many things, but a couple of things we're going to talk about tonight, including Alligator Alcatraz and one of the many United States Supreme Court rulings that we've gotten in the last few days. And then I've got Somil Trivedi, who used to be with the American Civil Liberties Union, but is now with our collaborators on Legal AF, Court Accountability Action. He's going to be hosting a special tomorrow at 11 a.m. We have the link in the notes below. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., a special roundtable about what just happened at the United States Supreme Court level. And you're going to want to hear from this group of people. We've got Ellie Mistal, we've got Madba Denny, we got Leah Littman, we got Mike Sachs. Tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, live streamed on Legal AF YouTube channel. I got another big announcement I'm going to make, which I think people are going to find great and fun. That's coming up. Hence, I dressed up. I got to dress up, man. I've been looking around at my competitors. You know, we got competitors. I know who they are. And I look at them and I'm going, So these people let their hair grow down, got rid of their suit. Now they're looking a little more cash. I got to go the other way. I'm going to go from cash to dressed up. Who knows? Maybe next show I'll be wearing white tails. I don't know. I'm glad you're here. United States Supreme Court rulings galore. We'll talk about what you probably already know what happened, but I'm going to tell you what should have happened and why it's bullshit that Roberts extolled the virtue of our history of rights and freedom when he penned in some eloquent fashion the very pithy and short birthright citizenship ruling. But I don't give a crap because it's the same guy that rips away with his other pen, usually carried by Sam Alito, rips away those rights for that very same group of people in other opinions that got dropped over the summer. So don't look at me, don't pee down our leg and tell me it's raining. Okay, don't talk about, well, ever since Reconstruction and the horribles of the Dred Scott decision, which undermine a black person's right to have liberty in this country. You know who undermine a black person's right to have liberty in this country? The Roberts Court. The Roberts Court and the MAGA 6, who have narrowed our rights so small you could drown them in a bathtub. And then to have, whenever he wants to be magnanimous and generous, John Roberts says, give me the pen. Give me the quill pen. I'll write it. But then when he wants to kill a set of rights, he hands the poison pen to Sam Alito. You write it. I'll join. You write it. And then if he's trying to protect the president, he picks the pen up again and protects Donald Trump. He's the author of Immunity Decision. He's the author of Donald Trump's not an insurrectionist decision. So, we're on to you, John Roberts. And there were some good things that came out of some of the decisions. I mean, I said they were not going to overturn birthright citizenship, and they're not. It's a little closer than I thought. I got a little nervous. 6-3 should have been 7-2 at worst. And a lot of fights are breaking out. It's like fireworks early on the Supreme Court. Ketanji Brown Jackson takes on Clarence Thomas. I thought even in the way it was written, Roberts took on Clarence Thomas and the dissenters. And what is Gorsuch doing in the dissent? Neil Gorsuch, you really think that a president can reinterpret an amendment to a constitution and do it by executive order? Seriously? You are dumber than I thought. There is a snickering among constitutional scholars. I don't know if this is going to come up tomorrow because they're a little bit too polite. That's why I have a podcast. to say it. But Gorsuch and Kavanaugh are not considered shining lights. They're a sandwich short of a full picnic, if you know what I'm talking about. Seriously, that's what you believe? And then Donald Trump comes out. Well, I'll stay on birthright citizenship for a minute. Donald Trump comes out with, well, I got a solution. All right, great. Oh, you great constitutional scholar. What is it? How are you going to beat an amendment to the Constitution? Statute. Congress. I mean, do you not understand how rock, papers, and scissors work? Executive orders don't beat an amendment to the Constitution, and neither do statutes. You can't legislate, that the statute would have to turn into an amendment to the Constitution, and that's not happening. But Donald Trump doesn't give a shit anymore. Has anybody noticed, other than making a couple of $1 billion in crypto and putting his name and face everywhere, he's thrown in the towel. Intellectually, morally, obviously, ethically, of course. Criminality is overwhelming. Iran, I guess he got tired of hourly announcements that we had won the war, when everybody who's got a half a brain knows we lost and we surrendered. But he's given up. It's all about making as much money as possible and as many businesses as possible to benefit his children. It got so bad that the New York Post, of all things, which is normally a big supporter of Donald Trump, said it wasn't right for Hunter Biden to make money on his one little board seat for Burisma in the Ukraine. And it's not right for the Lutnick kids and family, or the Trump kids, to be making billions of dollars of government money, to make their investments around the world, as they they hang on the coattails of daddy, and of course have people like the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick able, because he sits on the board of the Export-Import Bank, and he sits on another board. He can literally stroke checks to pay for investments in private companies that his own family business is benefiting from. When's the Supreme Court going to rule on that? Sure, there was a good decision on mail-in ballots. We'll talk about it. Penned by Amy Coney Barrett, immediately attacked by the Megyn Kellys of the world. I thought she was one of our own. Oh my God. It's just, they're just insufferable, and then when it's a slow news day or something goes wrong at the Supreme Court, like sort of today with birthright citizenship, they trot, we know the playbook, don't we? They trot Stephen Miller out to say something insane and obscene, right? And we'll see if we'll take the bait on that. We didn't. We won't. There's many things on our mind and our audience's mind. Voting and the sacred right to vote and having it protected. The Epstein files and what it says about an administration continuing to cover up a child sex trafficking ring. Todd Blanche, and trying to defeat him becoming the Attorney General of the United States because he is, in a word, unfit for that position. This is what affordability, this is what matters. And what matters to the do-nothing Congress of MAGA and Mike Johnson? I don't know, starting vacations early? Donald Trump keeps throwing a live hand grenade at Mike Johnson on a regular basis, right? No, don't pass affordability legislation that will help the Republican Party at the midterms at least have a talking point to the American people. No, don't do that. I'm not going to. If you do that, I'm not going to put up the nominee for the Department of the National Intelligence Director. I'm going to tie those two things together. No, SAVE Act. You got to have the SAVE Act and everything. This federal takeover of elections, which is illegal and unconstitutional. Even Amy Coney Barrett said so effectively in her new order. And so we'll put the SAVE Act again. We'll put it back into a Senate bill. We'll shove it into the Senate. We'll shoehorn it in to a defense appropriation bill and let reconciliation happen. And then we'll get the SAVE Act. Not happening. The Democrats are too smart for that. They own a little thing called the filibuster, which the Republicans will never give up because they know they're going to be the minority party soon. And so they're not giving up the filibuster just to give Donald Trump the SAVE Act, which is unconstitutional. You don't have to listen to me. Listen to Amy Coney Barrett on page 19 of her opinion about mail-in ballots. It is for the legislatures. state and federal, to decide what to do about the integrity of elections, not courts and not the president. And so he's frustrated, about it, because all he's been doing is expending scarce political capital trying to interfere with the election between now and the midterms. Got a lot to cover tonight. Got a lot of Supreme Court cases. That's why I brought on in the kind of, not the second half of the show, but the third of the show, bringing on Representative Maxwell Frost to talk about some. And I'm going to start kibitzing about Supreme Court stuff with somebody who worked in the Justice Department as a Supreme Court scholar in Somil Trivedi, now with Court Accountability Action. We'll be doing all of that. Let's start with birthright citizenship, shall we? And then we'll move down from there. And I want to talk a lot about E. Jean Carroll. Birthright citizenship, 6-3. An odd combination. Let's start with that. Roberts takes the pen. He's joined by Amy Coney Barrett. So Amy Coney Barrett slides over like she did with the tariff decision and like she did in mail-in ballots. Slides over and votes in a block with the liberal moderate wing, but joining them in the result of having birthright citizenship upheld in the 14th Amendment is Brett Kavanaugh. But he does it for different reasons. Still, it's a 6-3 decision. Gorsuch slides over with Alito and Thomas. Thomas likes to spend time talking about Black history and slavery, which is bizarre coming out of his pen. It's wrong anyway. And the reason that Roberts wrote the decision and got 6 votes is because he talked about the history of the common law of the divine right of birthright citizenship dating back to the 1600s in England. And that has been a through line to the American colonies beyond the Civil War forever. That it is a part of our DNA. It's part of what we call the common law. The common law you can't look up in a book necessarily. It's not in a statute book. It's not in a code. It's not in the Constitution. The common law is, I want to say, an kind of an oral set of traditions that ends up being embodied in case law, what we call stare decisis or precedent. We refer to it when all else fails, we'll say common law. There's federal common law is not as common. State common law is very common. And if a judge will say to you, well, Mr. Popok, what's your problem? What's the support for that proposition that you're making in my courtroom? Sometimes I'll say it's a statute. Sometimes I'll say it's the Constitution of some state or federal. Sometimes I'll say it's common law, Your Honor. And I'll cite my 3 or 4 cases. And Roberts says it's common law. It has been a part of our being as Americans, even before we were Americans, dating back 400 years. And you can't throw that away. And then he walks through the history of the Dred Scott decision in 1857, which declared that newly freed slaves, should they be any, were not U.S. citizens. And there was such a public outcry, especially by abolitionists, that an event through the Civil War, that it eventually led to the Reconstruction Amendments that were issued just after the Civil War and some during Lincoln's lifetime, including the 14th Amendment, which put into the Constitution something that the Congress at the time had already put into law. If you're born on U.S. soil, it doesn't matter what your parents do or didn't do, or what status they have, you are an American. It was then memorialized in the amendment. Trump was like, well, they're not subject to the laws of the United States, which is a phrase, a clause within the amendment, because their parents are here temporarily or illegally or whatever his argument was. Or my favorite from Donald Trump was when he said, it only applies to newly freed slaves, right? It's got an expiration date. It's got a shelf life. On the 14th, there was a footnote on the 14th Amendment that nobody caught, but Donald Trump. It doesn't, forget the language. It only applies to newly freed slaves. Ridiculous. And so there was also an argument that was raised about allegiance and who's got the allegiance to what. And Roberts kind of swept it aside and said, you can't even get your allegiance story straight. What matters is the divine right of being born on U.S. soil. And that gives you instant status. And that is how he ended. He had a whole big flurry, flowery language and all of that. Again, crocodile tears. That's not the right word. Coming from a guy who rips away through the Voting Rights Act the protection of the rights that he extols. It's sort of bullshit, My first reaction, I pulled a Robert De Niro when I was preparing for my hot takes. I was like, F off. F off. That you wanted to be associated with that. Robert's court will go down in history as the worst court for civil rights, civil liberties, voting rights, women's rights, immigration rights, the separation of powers, co-equal branches of government, checks and balances, you name it. The hits just keep on coming, right? And they give permission, I believe, for us to reform them. They just wrote their own death sentence, their own death warrant, because now there's a public outcry to add 4 additional seats to the Supreme Court under Democratic control, to put term limits. There's no, 9 is not a magic number, the number of Supreme Court justices. It's not in the Constitution. Put in term limits, make an ethics code, and let's start impeachment processes. That's what's missing here. The founding fathers would have expected by now, that the framers would have expected by now, that we would have already started impeachment proceedings against the United States Supreme Court, and we haven't, and we should. And Congress needs to clip the wings of the Supreme Court through the power of the purse. Take away some money, Don't have John Roberts be secretly building a police force, which apparently he is, to the tune of many millions of dollars. Relocate them out of the building. They don't need to be in those grandiose, the temple of justice. They don't deserve it. Move them into a shopping strip somewhere in suburban Virginia. I don't care. Whatever it takes to kick them back into line to protect America, democracy, and the rule of law, which they, of course, have forgotten. Other cases that came out, of course, if you hated the case from 20 years ago, Citizens United, that allowed corporations almost unlimited ability to pump dark money into our campaigns, you're going to hate the new decision penned by Kavanaugh, 6-3, of course, which is going to allow for more coordination between political action committees and parties. It's going to flood more money. See, Republicans have more big donor money, and the Democrats have more small donor money. And this decision is going to help the Republicans get more money into the election. Is that what's missing from our election process? More money? Kavanaugh's like, this will help strengthen the parties. Really? This is from a guy who, along with Amy Coney Barrett and Gorsuch, got bought and paid for by the NRA and other lobby groups through the Federalist Society that lobbied for them to be confirmed. Bought and paid for by public interest groups. And now he's like, oh, we should give more money to the parties. Oh, of course. Of course we should. Transgender rights, Kavanaugh strikes again. There is no transgender leagues where transgender people play against other transgender people. So if they want to play sport, they need to do it with the sex that they identify with. Nope, not so, says the Supreme Court. Biological sex determines what sport league you play in, period. It's the most disadvantaged, fragile, politically impotent group in our society, the transgender community. I don't know if it's 1%, less than 0.5%, whatever it is, but it deserves our protection and the Supreme Court's protection, not to crush it out of existence and stigmatize them. But of course, leave it to Kavanaugh. And then I want to talk about mail-in ballots as well. When I get some of my guests on, we'll talk about mail-in ballots. I want to talk about temporary protective status and what happened last week with immigration law in a series of Alito decisions and all of that. And I want to talk about E. Jean Carroll, who had a big win. I want to tell you what I think it means at the United States Supreme Court for her $100 million worth of judgments. And I want to talk about some things involving the Lutnick family and Donald Trump and the obscene amount of money that they're making off the backs of taxpayers, which we're going to talk about. Now let's talk about why I'm dressed up. Should I go to questions? We're live. So take a moment, and if you have a question for me, put it in the chat, and somebody, I'm not sure who, will catch it and write it to me. Here's a few that have just come in. Tracy, H99, says, now that SCOTUS has ruled in mail-in ballots, do you think the states that have changed their mail-in voting policy, like Ohio, will be pressured to change theirs back? I don't know, did Ohio allow for a grace period? And now, yeah, I mean, anything politically, the Supreme Court didn't say you have to have a grace period after, 5 days after an election to continue to accept ballots. It just said if you do, it doesn't violate a statute about when election day is. And also reminded everybody that it's states first and Congress second that decides on the time, place, and manner of elections, federal elections included, not the President of the United States. Let's see. Fed up something said, Popok, considering it's been reported that Trump earned $1.2 billion with his crypto scheme, isn't this a perfect example of why we need to squelch Blanche's IRS settlement? Yeah, I mean, there's many reasons. I think Judge Williams is going to do it for us, and if she doesn't, Judge Brinkema is going to do it. But yeah, it's certainly something that you could continue. That you can continue to just pile on and add on for sure. Continue to add your questions. I'm sure there's more, and I certainly will catch them throughout the show. Maybe for our guests, Representative Maxwell Frost coming up after our break, and separately, Somil Trivedi from Court Accountability Action, to kind of do more of a jazz riff about what happened at the United States Supreme Court. Here's the big news I have. No, I'm not retiring. Quite the opposite. We launched just moments ago the new Popok firm website. And for those that don't know, I founded a law firm about 3 years ago, really dedicated and bespoke to our audience, right? To Midas Touch, Legal AF, the intersection. And we brought in hundreds and hundreds of matters for people who have been injured through the negligence of others or in some sort of catastrophic injury case. And if you go, I don't know if we're running this graphic. There it is. The Popok firm. If you go there and to that QR code, you're going to see the new logo and the new website, which I'm very proud of. And hopefully you'll go through it. And if it's something in your life or that of your family, you'll find it very, very interesting. And hopefully, and so I'm dressed up for that. I'm dressed up for the Popok firm. Appreciate y'all being here for that. And so many different ways to support what we do here before we take our first break. I've been told by my producers that we need more audio downloads for the intersection. You do great on video. You may not even know we're on audio. Come over to wherever you get audio podcasts from. There it is. And hit the free download or subscribe to the intersection. If you do it now, we'll triple our numbers. And it's important, not because of ego, because it's part of what kind of keeps us on the air, keeps the intersection popular. People want to come on the show, gives us the muscles, the muscularity as a podcast. So I'm asking for that. I do most of my work on Legal AF YouTube and Legal AF Substack. So we got Legal AF YouTube. We just crossed Substack. We just crossed 1.12 million subscribers on Legal AF, and we're still in a major build there. Now's the time to join and hit the subscribe button. Substack, where I do a live report every day, did one today on the Supreme Court, is also a great place to join in fellowship and community with what we do. So two great ways to help us there. And then we've got our some sponsors that have joined the intersection, want to speak to our audience. Jordy, one of the Mycelis brothers and me, kind of put these together. And I think now is a great time to take a break for our sponsors. In my line of work, the discovery process is everything. But there's a form of discovery happening to you every day that you never consented to. Right now, your personal records, home address, phone number, and even relatives' names are being discovered packaged, and sold by an unregulated industry of data brokers. This isn't just about privacy, it's about security. This data is the primary fuel for the identity theft and sophisticated scams we see dominating the headlines. That is why I've partnered with Incogni. Think of Incogni as your personal privacy advocate. Instead of you spending dozens of hours navigating the labyrinth opt-out processes that these brokers intentionally make difficult, Incogni handles the legal work of demanding your information be removed. They initiate the request and follow up to ensure those brokers actually comply with the law. What really sets them apart is their unlimited plan, which features custom removals. This is for those hard-to-scrub sites that fall outside the standard lists, like old news portals, random blogs, or sketchy directories. If you find your info somewhere it shouldn't be, you simply send Incogni the link. Their team of privacy experts then handles the manual takedown for you, start to finish. I've used this service myself, and the continuous monitoring in the background is the only way to ensure that once your data is gone, it stays gone. Take control of your personal data risk-free for 30 days. Go to incogni.com/truth and use code TRUTH to get 60% off an annual plan. It's time to take your data off the market before it's used against you with code TRUTH at incogni.com/truth to reclaim your privacy today. And we are back. Thank you for being here on the intersection. Links to our sponsors are below. And thank you for being here. We got a great audience tonight. Let me answer just a couple of more questions before we bring in our first guest. Darlene Farmer asked, can we request the removal of justices who lied to Congress during their confirmation that they will not overturn precedent, such as Dobbs, about a woman's right to choose? No, but you can impeach them. I mean, just starting the process, just threatening the process will have tremendous positive impact on the Supreme Court. I assure you, we should give it a try. That's a button that I'd like to push and see what happens. And I think our audience does as well. SCOTUS reform. Deanna Stahl asks, if Alito and Thomas are already retired, well, let's see, can Congress do anything about their corruption? Oh, if they retire, not really. Not really. I mean, once they're off, they can't be impeached. That's clear. People have certainly resigned and retired to avoid it. Look, as I said before, Alito is going to retire. I think he's going to retire. It may not be off of what Nina Totenberg reported and now has apologized for. He's going to retire because he wants to cement his legacy. He's done all the bad stuff, and he wants to put it into a silo for the next 30 or 40 years. And the way to ensure that the Alito legacy in his mind is preserved is to get off in time while Trump still has the Senate, to slide in a 40-year-old Alito. Same with Thomas. The only thing that's holding Clarence Thomas up is that he's waiting to be I never thought I'd say the sentence, the longest serving Supreme Court justice in history, which happens right before the midterms. Once that happens, they're off. And you're going to see 240 or early 50-year-olds coming in their stead for the next 20 or 30 years. That's what you're going to see. And anybody that's telling you anything differently doesn't know what they're talking about. I don't mean to be rude, but just, well, he wants to stay on for a longer period of time because he's having fun. Forget that, because it's all for naught if they don't get off. The Senate turns to the Democrats, and Trump can't get anybody confirmed that is at the alt-right wing of the party, you know? So, and I have a theory, and I'll bring it up maybe with one of my guests about who I think one of his major candidates is on that. Okay, so let me just check with my my crowd. Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. So we are going to bring in our first guest, Representative Maxwell Frost from the 10th District in Florida. Hi, Representative Frost.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm sorry you and I didn't connect at the Netroots Nation in Philly.
Oh yeah, Netroots was great. It was great. All good. I was just there for about a day.
Yeah.
But it was good. We did a few good panels.
Right. And I told your team, that's okay. We'll skip this interview, but then he's coming on my show.
There we go.
Right. So you're a leader in many, many ways in Congress. Somebody that if people don't know Maxwell Frost, you need to know him, and you need to know you. And I want people to know more about you through a couple of your areas of leadership. One, I want to talk about, since we're here on talking about the Supreme Court on a day when they dropped birthright citizenship, we can talk about birthright citizenship, but certainly I want to talk about the case that destroyed temporary protective status as we know it for a large group of people that you and I are very attached to. You in terms of representing them in Florida, and me, I live in Miami, and I'm very close and with many friends in the proud Haitian community and Haitian American community in Miami, and have been for years. So I want to do that. And then my audience often asks about Alligator Alcatraz. And I know you've been out there. You've got human rights concerns about it, and it's purported closing down. So why don't we kick it off with birthright citizenship in this United States Supreme Court about TPS and what you're doing in Congress as well about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can start with TPS because this is the decision that came out last week, where essentially the Supreme Court is giving the Trump administration the go-ahead to essentially eliminate TPS illegally, in my mind, for Haitians and Syrians. Now, this is going to have a deep impact across all TPS for all the countries that currently have it. But to hone in specifically on Haitian Americans, I'll tell you, that's over 350,000 people that starting tomorrow, if they continue to work to end TPS, will not be able to have a driver's license, which means they can't drive, will lose their work permit, which means they can't work, and will be at risk of immediate deportation like that. And the most sinister part about the whole thing, there's two very sinister parts. The first one is the purpose of TPS is our country saying, we know that there's an emergency, there are natural disasters, there is repression in your nation, and we are giving you safe harbor as we work to solve the issue there. The issue in Haiti is not solved. In fact, to the point where our own State Department tells U.S. citizens to not travel to Haiti on the no travel list. It's too dangerous for you to visit Haiti for a day. Yet, on the same token, they want to expel 350,000 people of our neighbors, of our teachers, of our business owners, of our caretakers, which in my district and in the state of Florida make up about 1/5 of all elder caretakers and elder nurses are Haitian Americans. They want to expel them to this country. It is deeply racist. And a part of this bigger project that Trump has of essentially expelling Black and brown people from this nation. And this is part of that. What are we doing to fight back? Two things. Number one, we knew this was coming. And so instead of waiting to react to something, Ayanna Pressley and I worked together and put forth a discharge petition. What's a discharge petition? Well, when the Speaker of the House doesn't want to put a bill on the floor, we put it on the floor. And as long as we get 50% plus one of people to sign it, it forces the vote. We did this months ago. We got enough Republicans to sign it with us. Yes, a few Republicans actually joined us on this, and we passed it through the House of Representatives in a historic vote to extend TPS for Haitians. Now it's in the hands of the Senate, and we need people's help. If you can reach out to your senators, they need to put the bill on the floor and pass it immediately. The second thing is on the constituent services side, we're working with Haitian families within my district to make sure that they know what legal pathways they have to stay in this country, to have legal status, and to make sure they have the resources they need. Like I said, people are losing their jobs right now. People are not able to drive anymore. But guess what? They still have to pay rent tomorrow. They still have bills that are due. They still have to feed their kids. Many of their kids are U.S. citizen children. And so it's not just devastating to individuals. It's devastating to families and whole communities. And again, a deeply racist policy, but we're going to continue to fight back on it.
Donald Trump, thank you, Representative Frost. Donald Trump is very good at making hardworking people disappear. He made 1 million people disappear during COVID, Americans and others who died. He's now made hardworking Haitians and Venezuelans and others who were paying billions of dollars in taxes, doing the jobs that are important to our economy, to our healthcare system, as you outlined, in biotech, in other places, in trying to be in this country, one, because as you pointed out, their own countries were turned upside down through natural disaster or otherwise, but also trying to find a path, a dignified path to stay in this country and build a life the way my great-grandparents did, your family when they came over. If your family came over from someplace else too, right?
Yeah, my mom came here from Cuba.
From Cuba, right. Coming here for a better life through a program. I met somebody recently that reminded me of what our dignified immigration policy used to look like.
Yeah.
They told me about waiting at home while they got a green card in 3 weeks mailed to them to come to the United States. They didn't have to live in the shadows. They didn't have to be berated by a president who accused them of eating pets or coming from an S-hole country or anything else degrading while he watches a group that I never knew was maligned, white South Africans, suddenly have free transit into the United States, right?
Yep.
So
the vast majority of refugees we took in last month were white people from South Africa. Yeah. And I think the interesting thing that you mentioned that I think is really important is they like to talk a lot about American exceptionalism, while at the same time trying to remove and change the very things that make our nation acceptable or exceptional versus the rest of the country. And the fact that we have a program like TPS where we say you could have safe harbor here and you can be with us as we figure that out. Birthright citizenship is another one. Talk about one of the things. There are a lot of nations around the world, yes, that have moved to get rid of birthright citizenship. But part of what makes our country exceptional and unique is we say if you're born in America, you are an American.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of this country.
And look at the numbers, which I'm sure you're seeing in Congress. When you stop the flow of smart, hardworking people into the country who are also of work age or childbearing years, yep. and you're left with an aging of America, right? Which is just under Donald Trump. Subtract 3 or 4 million people. Yep. Don't add any in, because nobody wants to come here right now because they're scared witless about it. And we've got the deportation or self-deportation or scaring the shit out of people to get out of the country. And look at the result. The result is we have an aging population with low birth rate that's not great for the America that you and I love, nor for the economy.
And the interesting thing is one of the Republicans today, in response to the birthright decision, said, well, we're disappointed in it because there are people who are gaming the system, taking advantage of the system. And what they're saying is there's people giving birth to children in our country. I thought this was the pro-birth, pro-family party. Well, and my other question is, if they don't want people to give birth or they don't want people to have families in this country, what do they want them to do if they get pregnant? Have an abortion? I mean, like, the whole birthright citizenship thing and the way they're responding to it just calls out the hypocrisy that they do not care about families. No. They don't care about children. The whole thing is a way to continue to consolidate power and use it as a wedge issue to bring out voters.
You heard Amy Coney Barrett during the Dobbs decision oral argument. Yep. Firehouses are happy to take babies. You just drop them off at a firehouse with a tag on them, apparently. And that's right. You heard her. Look, I'm great. It's great that she adopted like 7 or 8 children. I'm not discrediting her from that. But then don't destroy the social safety net, right? That would help people who have children. Don't abandon them and expect, they'll just all get adopted. Has she ever walked through a foster home program or foster care?
No, they don't know anything about any of that stuff. Right. And, I said this in a committee hearing last year and was yelled at, essentially, that they're fine with them being born. So that way, a few years later, they can go to a school where the leading cause of death for a child in this country is to be shot with a bullet. So, I mean, this is part of the issue, is that they continue to rip away the very programs we have. They don't give a damn that the leading cause of death for a child in this country is to be shot. And again, it's all about control.
Yeah, absolutely. And on birthright citizenship, I don't know if you saw before you got on. I mean, the fact that Roberts took the pen and wrote in flowery language about a combination of slavery and the Dred Scott decision and the Reconstruction Amendments, and this country's about the right to have rights. And I'm like, are you effing kidding me? This is the same guy who led the charge against the Voting Rights Act to destroy rights for Black and brown people, especially in the southern states. And then he's here. Oh, I get to be generous and magnanimous. I get to write this decision about with all this flowery language. Oh, let's do it.
In his mind, he's absolving himself of all the BS and horrible decisions he's been a part of, but history will not be kind to him or any of those people.
No, and he knows it. So, we got a little bit closer than I thought it was going to be on birthright citizenship. Hard to believe that 3 people on the United States Supreme
9-0. That should have been a 9-0 decision.
I was a little bit more 7-2. Alito and Thomas. I was like,
in a world where people in a world where people believe that we should follow what the Constitution said.
Right. And then Gorsuch slides over. I'm like, are you?
Oh, yeah.
So an executive order is going to commandeer a constitutional amendment because they rigged the history that they were reciting and the history of common law that they were reciting to end up reverse engineer it to end up where they wanted to end up. Look, you can take a page out of any history book, right, and use it to your advantage if you distort history. It's so bad that Ketanji Brown Jackson ripped into Clarence Thomas's dissent, right?
Yep. No, 100%. I mean, and I always encourage people, if you can, read these dissents, read what comes out of the Supreme Court, because the decision alone is, of course, it's the most important part, but reading what they have to say about it doesn't just help us understand where their mind's at, but it can help us really look at future issues that are going to come down the line. As legislators, we really need to read these because it's going to help us understand what laws we need to queue up. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. And if you have a question for Representative Frost, now's the time to put it in chat. We'll try to catch it. He's been very generous with his time, which I appreciate. But I'd like to also turn to Alligator Alcatraz, down there in the Florida Everglades, where a human storage unit in inhumane fashion. First question: is it open or is it closed?
It is closed. It is officially closed, and the reason it's closed is because of organizations, organizers, elected officials, people who came together to make sure, number one, that the story didn't die and people knew about it. 2, that we investigated on the real cost of this place that cost us over $1 billion, which means about $1 million a day to operate the place, and the lawsuits. And I have to shout out the Miccosukee tribe, the Center for Biological Diversity, and Friends of the Everglades, which really put forth a lawsuit to litigate the situation. But the lawsuit wasn't on human rights abuses or civil rights abuses like many people might think, but it was on the environmental impacts. And it goes to show that a lot of times what you think might be the right way to go isn't the right thing to do in terms of strategy. And really looking at it from an environmental point of view is what helped us really temporarily shut it down last year for several months. When it reopened back up, those investigations was really what helped us get to this point. Why'd they close it? Because it cost too much damn money. And they really want to close it and just move on. But we're not moving on. We're going to continue to investigate it. People have to be held accountable. There has to be consequences because of the misuse of our money, because of the fact that they used this facility to funnel taxpayer money to political donors. The entire place was run by private corporations, by the way.
Was that a GEO project?
That was not GEO, but it was a few other. It was a conglomeration of organizations. GEO might have had some sort of contract there, but it was a conglomerate of different companies. I mean, I remember my first time in Alligator Alcatraz. I went 3 times, and my first time in there, I see all of these private jets on the runway, and I think these have to be state planes, right? It's run by the state. And I asked somebody, they say, no, that belongs to the CEOs of the companies. The companies that our taxpayer monies are going to. And the other thing that I have to bring up is the money that they use for this, they took from the Hurricane Preparedness Fund, from our fund to make sure that we protect people when hurricanes come so people don't die. They used to make this internment camp for our immigrant neighbors. And now DeSantis is saying, well, hey, listen, the federal government's going to reimburse us. FEMA is going to reimburse us. We'll have 2 things to say to that. Number one, we'll see. They haven't reimbursed us yet. But number 2, who cares? It's like if FEMA reimburses you, it's still taxpayer money.
Right. It's robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, like, it doesn't like it does. I don't care if you get reimbursed. It's all our money. It's all our money for that are supposed to be used for natural disasters, not internment camps for immigrants.
A couple of questions that have come in, Representative Frost. You have a few more moments with us? Great. First, from Tracy. She asked the Tracy H99. Representative Frost, do you think Florida has a good chance of turning blue at the midterms and beyond?
I always think Florida has a good chance of turning blue. And look, I'll tell you, the work that we have to do in this state, it's long term. We have a lot of organizing we need to do. But let me tell you, number one, we need to fight to make sure we flip the governor's mansion, that we kick out Ashley Moody. But don't forget about the state and local races and the races at the state legislature. So a mistake that Democrats make a lot of the time, this is my organizer hat on, which for people who don't know, before I ran for Congress, I've been an organizer since I was 15 years old and worked on campaigns since I was 18. We have to be in the business of power building. And I have a lot of people who say, Maxwell, every time I invest in Florida, I get my heart broken. I say, you know how you win? You know how you win a hard state? You get your heart broken a lot. And then one day, your heart's fulfilled, right?
Right.
And we have to be in the business of building power here, regardless of whether we win every race we want or not. And that's something that the Republican Party understands. That's why they've been able to make up so much ground in the state of Florida. I remember my mom told me, the day she came here from Cuba, they're in the car, they're heading, somewhere right off the plane, turn on the radio station. It's a Cuban guy who had just gotten there right before her, talking about how good the Republican Party is. Little by little, they've been buying up the Spanish-speaking radio stations to the tune of about 95% of them in South Florida. So I think it's just important, and that was in the 60s, okay? So I just think it's important for us to realize that we have a lot of work to do, and we have to continue to do it, and I'm dedicated to it. Look, I am technically the first person elected to the next Congress. And what do I mean by that? I don't have a Democratic opponent. I don't have a Republican opponent. I am running unopposed in both the primary and general election. And Florida is one of the only states that makes it so that way if you're running unopposed, they don't put you on the ballot. So I've actually already been elected.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Are you still the youngest member of Congress?
Well, I am right now. We'll have to see. There is a guy running in Iowa too. He's a Republican who's 3 months younger than me.
Oh, we gotta take him out. I mean,
you gotta take him out. Yeah, there goes one of my biggest fundraising asks. No, but the important thing is this. Look, I'm in a blue place in Orlando, Florida. I am running unelected. So conventional wisdom says I can chill, but we can't, right? And I'm still aggressively raising money. I'm still aggressively doing everything I need to do. Why? Because this summer, I have hired 86 organizers. I have brought onto my campaign and paying 86 people to go out and knock doors so we can win from the top of the ticket all the way to the school board. And we're going to do it all summer. And then in the fall, we're going to do the same thing again. I'm actually running the biggest campaign I've run since my first campaign, and I'm not even on the ballot. That's what we need to do. Every step of the way.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
We're sort of enabling our audience to have counter programming to this crazy Freedom 250 thing over the weekend, which used to be called the 250th birthday of our Declaration of Independence. And I love counter programming that gets our people involved and helps. So if they're now fired up, which I think anybody within 10 blocks of you should be, especially here on the intersection, what can they do to help you, the groups that you're working with? What, let's say right now they want to get off the couch and out of the chair, and they want to help. How can they do it?
Okay, a couple things. Number one, if you want to stay on the couch and help, you can go to frostforcongress.com and chip in $5 or $10, and it'll help us pay for some literature, some waters, because it's hot in Florida, and help us with these young people that are out organizing. Two, if you want to get out of the couch and you're in Central Florida, go to frostforcongress.com/organize. We canvass every week. Every day there's an action you can take part in. But if you're not in my district, please go online and find the different groups, whether it's Indivisible, or different groups like that, 5051, that you can connect with and go out and organize in. And what I tell people is find a candidate that you believe in, whether they're on the city council or they're running for the United States Congress, and dedicate real time to going out and knocking doors and making phone calls, because we need everyone to be involved in this right now. There's something everybody can do here. And so before you leave this broadcast, if you will, before you leave this, sign up to do something, like do something before the end of the day, or sign up to do something.
Oh yeah, we got perfect. We got 5,000 people that are watching live, and another probably 100,000 people that are watching behind the scenes for now. So let me just wrap up Alligator Alcatraz. You referenced the case. I think that was in front of Judge Williams down in my neck of the woods in Miami on the environmental issue. When you say it's closed, there are no more human beings there?
There are no more immigrants there. The last ones were about a week and a half ago. In fact, when there was a rumor that it was closing, I immediately went there, because the governor was saying, well, I don't, he was kind of beating around the bush, because he doesn't want to admit that it's closing less than a year later and $1 billion later, because it's a failed project and a waste of our money. So I went down there immediately, and what I found is the week before there was over 1,500 people there. When I went there were 655. And what I found is that they were in fact shutting down slowly but surely. But as of today, there are no immigrants in Alligator Alcatraz. And this victory is one of the organizations, and people who really pushed this project out of our community. But the next thing that's important is we can't just pat ourselves on the back and say, oh, we're done. No, number one, there's a ton of these facilities that need to close. But number two, people have to be held accountable for the human rights abuses, the civil rights abuses, the abuses to our environment, and the criminal use of our taxpayer money in that project of human suffering, that even though it closed, the crimes are still there. And we are going to be investigating that in the House majority.
And yeah, that's terrific for everybody to hear. And it dovetails with a question that was asked of you earlier, which is when you said the TPS bill that passed through a discharge petition ultimately is now with the Senate. Get on your senators to get that resolved, because they can fix what the Supreme Court just did with this law that you promulgated and promoted in the House. And somebody wrote, does haranguing the senators really work? Like, is that a button that works when you push it? And what do you have to say about that?
It does. And I'll tell you this, one call might not make a huge difference. I'll tell you that. But we're not asking for one call. We're asking for thousands. And that's what organizing is all about, right? And I can tell you guys, from being an elected official, when that phone is off the hook, when people are walking into that office, when the fax machine is just spitting stuff out. Yeah, I say fax machine because it's a good organizing. Hey,
you're too young for fax machine, by the way.
I'll tell you, when I was the organizing director at March for Our Lives, we did a campaign once because we learned that a lot of offices, when the phone was ringing off the hook, they would unplug the phone. But you know what they never unplug? The printer. And so we actually started doing a fax machine campaign where we were faxing people. Smart. And I had someone in one of the offices who said literally it was just shooting out these letters. So like when it's just everything being said to those offices, I'm telling you guys, it literally changes the physical environment in that office of everyone, the staff, the elected official, and it makes it so that way they feel that pressure. And at the end of the day, they might or might not go with us, but that relentless pressure is something these people must feel. And I'll tell you, especially being from Florida, the Haitian population is huge in Florida. It might be the largest Haitian population in the entire country is in the state of Florida. I might be wrong, but it has to be first or second.
I think you're right.
Yeah. Our Florida senators need to be hearing about this from people from Florida. So I think that this does work. And we have to use every tool at our disposal. I'm not saying just call. I'm saying do everything.
Yeah. Representative Maxwell Frost, I've been trying to get you on the show for a long time, and it was certainly worth the wait.
Hey, well, thank you for having me on, man. And these are important discussions. I'll come on whenever you'll have me, and people want to stay in touch with the work we're doing, they can follow me at Maxwell Frost FL.
Absolutely. Anytime your hair's on fire about an issue, you want to platform it and spotlight it, come on the intersection, Midas Touch Legal AF. Love to have you. Thank you, Representative Maxwell Frost, 10th Congressional District in Florida.
Thank you.
But stay on, because we've got more. I'm not going anywhere. I'm so glad that you're all here. We got a great audience tonight, really active, over 4,000 people in the chat. I sent out some free memberships just to incentivize people to stay on board. So many different ways to help us with the intersection before I get to my next guest. One of them is audio downloads. Yes, the dreaded audio download. Go over to wherever you get your audio podcast from and download the intersection. That's all you got to do. It's free. It's a button click, done. But it helps us. We need to balance our audio and our video, and that's one of the major ways to do it. Legal AF YouTube channel is where I do most of my work, along with the Midas Touch channel. 1.12 million people know why. You should join us there in our subscriber base. It's all free as well. 10 to 12 new videos every day. Legal AF Substack. If you don't know what Substack is, come over, join. It's free. Become a member, free. And every day I do a live report where I have a chat with 2,000 or 3,000 people that join us on the, I can do an update there in like seconds that I can't do even on a YouTube channel. And that's really important. And for those that join late and why I'm wearing a jacket, I had a big announcement to make. Tonight's the first night of my new law firm website. Totally redesigned. There it is, the Popok firm. All kidding aside, if you've been injured or someone in your life has been injured in a catastrophic injury or accident because of the negligence of others, civil rights violation, and the rest, we can help. I've got an amazing group of lawyers all over the country. We're already helping hundreds and hundreds of Midas Touch and Legal AFers intersectionists with their or their family's problems. There's a QR code up there that'll take you right to the website and a contact form, and it's all done without a fee. If we don't collect on your behalf, you don't pay us a dime. The Popok firm, great new website. Let me know what you think about it. Once you take a look at it, a lot of creativity and hard work, not necessarily mine, went into that website, but I do approve its message, which I appreciate. And tomorrow, switching gears for a minute, we've got an amazing live stream that's going to be going up on Legal AF YouTube channel. You can find it under the live feed. Go to live tab, and it's a roundtable called Fighting Back, Reclaiming Our Power from the Roberts Court. And it's going to be moderated by Somil Trivedi, who I'm going to bring in a moment, who's an advocacy director, senior counsel at Court Accountability Action, which works closely with Legal AF. They're all about rooting out corruption in federal courts up to the United States Supreme Court. That's their jam. And here they put together, look at this panel they put together. Elie Mystal, right? Mad Budeni, Leah Littman, Professor Leah Littman, and also Mike Sachs, a senior advisor to Court Accountability Action. And this is one of the great roundtables that you're not going to want to miss. 11 a.m. tomorrow. And I said, I don't know, why don't we get on like Somil on here and talk about what happened at the Supreme Court today? So let's introduce him. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing fantastic. Glad. I know we've been chatting, but I don't think we've met in person.
Yeah, this is great. And had I known this was the grand opening of the firm, I would have worn a jacket too.
No, not the grand opening of the firm, just the new website.
Well, that's great. That's congrats.
All right. But welcome. So why don't you, before we kind of sink our teeth into some of the Supreme Court cases, a little bit of a preview of what's going to happen tomorrow, talk about your background. I know you're at Department of Justice, American Civil Liberties Union, which is also a collaborator with us on the Legal AF channel, but now with Court Accountability Action. And people see the work of Lisa Graves, who's also my co-anchor on Legal AF Monday Night Live, and does work with us on Unprecedented, our show about the Supreme Court, and know Mike Sachs and Alex Aronson. But talk about the organization and what, from the moment people get up in the morning, get their head off their pillow until they put their head on their pillow at night, what you guys are focused on. And then we can talk about the panel for tomorrow.
Yeah, that's great. So a bit of background is, like you, I cut my teeth as a trial lawyer, as a litigator at a big firm, and then at the Justice Department, and then, as you said, the ACLU and other nonprofits trying to bring civil rights actions for people harmed by the government at all levels. And we kept coming up against these Federalist Society judges. And even though we had the law on our side, we had the facts on our side, we didn't have the power on our side. And there's only so many times you can look a client in the eye and say, look, we were right, but we just didn't win. When you got to do something about it, and stop banging your head against the wall. So, I had been in touch with Alex. I'd seen Lisa's great work and the other great work that Court Accountability had done. And I decided to dive into this court reform conversation. And, morning, noon, and night since I've started, we have had a laser focus on exposing the corruption, the lawlessness of the Supreme Court and the right-wing justices across the judicial system. And look, I came from the pro-democracy litigation space. I understand that courts can, in some cases, and have protected the rule of law. But when it's all going up to this 6-justice supermajority of the Roberts Court to die, or to barely be on life support, as we saw today and this week in so many cases, something's got to be done, and somebody's got to take the lead on that, and Court Accountability is doing it.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you joined them. I know they're working on a big build out. I spent a lot of time with Lisa and Alex at Netroots Nation, and talked about the kind of the combination of True North research with Court Accountability Action, and so when I heard you were going to be hosting this moment, I guess the first question is, I like the approach, fighting back, because one of the things that I like to bring to all of my commentary, there's just times when there is no lemonade to make out of the lemons.
That's
but
right.
there are, however, ways. I mean, should our audience just throw in the towel, give up, and say, "Wake me up"? I'm Rip Van Winkle. Wake me up in 30 years when the next round of younger Supreme Court justices finally retire, and the Democrats, for the first time in 60 or 70 years, get control of the Supreme Court. Is that is that it? Resignation is the strategy?
No, and what's crazy about that suggestion is every June and July of every year, that's actually how we approach the Supreme Court. We all sit around waiting for these oracles to send us down which rights we still have and don't have. And then we say, well, I hope one of them retires when we have the Senate. I mean, that's no way to live. And so I am here to vociferously tell your listeners, no, that is not how we have to live. The Constitution itself contains mechanisms by which we can push back. We can push back through organizing. We can push back through media outlets like yours. We do not have to take this lying down. You can see from the growing calls for court reform just in the last month that this is catching on, and we're not going to stop until we actually get there. So please, I implore all your listeners, come on, listen to us tomorrow. We're going to outline not just the bad cases and why they're bad, but what we can do about it. And then we're going to take this all the way.
Right. I mean, Congress has a role. It's been abdicated, but Congress, when you have a do-nothing Congress, you're like, what can Congress do? But when you have a robust Congress that's led by Democrats in this case, there are many things from, when was the last time, I'm not trying to stump you, it's more of a rhetorical. When was the last time a Supreme Court justice was the subject of an impeachment proceeding?
A very long time ago.
We should bring it back.
Far less than what Justices Thomas, Alito, and others have done. That time was for a mere speaking engagement for a couple $1,000s. Now we've got RVs and trips to Italy and Sam Alito getting knighted and flying a flag upside down. I mean, if we want to start this drumbeat, it can start as early as oversight hearings next year. That can build to impeachment, and that can build to changes to the Supreme Court as early as 2029. There is a pathway here that is not, like you said, a 30-year hope that they die on time strategy. There's a real strategy here. Good.
And I know the group that you've put together. Yeah, listen, we've got to talk about what happened, but then within what happened, there are opportunities.
That's right.
There's language in Ketanji and in Amy Coney Barrett's mail-in ballots, which is helpful for future attempts by Donald Trump to federalize the elections. In short, I don't think he has 5 votes to do almost anything that he's trying to do if Amy Coney Barrett is reflecting the majority, which I think that she is. There's language, even in the dissents. People sometimes ask, why does it matter that Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote another elegant dissent? Who's her audience? Who's her audience? You tell our audience. Who's her audience?
Yeah, future justices of the Supreme Court, right? I mean, Clarence Thomas made a cottage industry out of this. He's been on the court so long that his ideas have gone from fringe law review articles to small references and dissenting opinions to concurring opinions to now the rule of law for the entire country. I mean, the guy has been, we have to admit, extremely successful in getting his wackadoodle ideas into the legal mainstream. Luckily, our ideas are already mainstream. We just need the power and the numbers to get them into majority opinion. So that is exactly what KBJ and others are doing.
Yeah, Ketanji Brown Jackson is also speaking to law students, right? She's speaking to other dissent can become, like you said, a majority opinion, or you can cite to it in your filings or your brief to try to get that issue reconsidered from a different angle. There's a lot of reasons those are written. And, you know, it's healthy to watch a Supreme Court justice go after another Supreme Court justice in writing or otherwise during an oral read of one of their opinions or whatever, because it reminds us that they are human and they can be moved and influenced by the public. You wouldn't think so, the way, you know, it's gonna chap my ass watching John Roberts and others on their summer lecture tour talk about, well, there were many 7-2 and 9-0 decisions, and the mail-in ballots and tariffs and birthright citizenship. Is everything okay now? No, everything's not effing okay now.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the play is getting pretty ham-fisted at this point, where they wreck the Constitution for 5 months out of the year, and then on the last day before they fly off on their private jets, they give us the crumbs of birthright citizenship, which they never should have taken. The crumbs of the late arriving ballot case, which should have been 9-0 or never taken. And so I think it's our job, and I commend you here on this podcast to nip that narrative in the bud. We're going to do that tomorrow at our live stream as well. Don't let them get away with it. Stay on them. And yes, read those dissents, because they're going to be the majority opinion soon enough.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got, even birthright citizenship, where Roberts took the pen for all that flowery language while he throws the poison pen to Alito, you know, to write anything about voting rights and to take away the rights from the very people he just said need the rights. It's like, you know, do you think is this like a 3-card Monte game where you don't think we know where the ball is? You know, like, we know what you're doing and we're going to call it out. What do you expect to come out of the live stream? Like, what if you would encourage our audience to tune in tomorrow? We've already got a group that's already sitting over there waiting in line. If you were, and the link for it is back in the notes below. What do you want the takeaway to be from it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I want the takeaway to be that we need to start viewing Supreme Court cases in terms of power, not procedure, not jurisprudence, not the law in the ways that they want us to believe it is, but in the ways it actually is, and in the power that lies behind it. And then most importantly, what we can do about it. And so, you know, we're probably going to get into all the various forms of court reform and all the various options on the table. You don't need to necessarily have your mind made up on any single one of them or all of them. But the point is, we need to build a drumbeat about ending the judicial supremacy that the Supreme Court has imposed on all of us. And then the mechanisms will fix themselves. That's what I want people to take away, that there are things that can be done.
Yeah. And I've seen many of the panelists. I've had Leah Littman on with me, Ali Mistal. I went to one of the major panels at the Netroots Nation. In fact, I'm trying to, when you're with him, will you whisper in his ear that I'm trying to get him to come on Legal AF more regularly?
Absolutely.
I had a long conversation, not to out him, but I had a long conversation with Ellie, and he was like, yeah, absolutely, I'm in. And then that was the last I heard from him. So why don't you talk to him? And I'm so glad that you're with CAA. And leading the charge there on these types of issues. I think it's a great kind of introduction for you too. This is your first one moderating for them, and certainly the live stream tomorrow. I think people need it. People need it. So tune in the links below. And if people want to know, there it is, Wednesday, July 1st, 11 a.m. Are all the decisions out, by the way, or are we still waiting on a couple of more?
So all the decisions in argued cases are out, but the way the Trump administration operates. You never know when another case is going to go up to the shadow docket or something is going to happen on an emergency basis. So I encourage everyone to tune in. Also, Alito retired and unretired today. There's going to be news about that. I mean, anyone who's paying attention knows both of them are probably going to retire over the summer, along with maybe LeBron, who knows. And so please stay in touch with news out of the court. There's a reason that they issue these opinions and fly off for an entire summer. It's so that you don't think about all the destruction that they wrought over the last year. So please stay tuned in and thinking about all these ways that we can fight back starting tomorrow at 11.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for being here with us. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of you. I think you and I talked about you doing your own videos and hot takes for, coming, love to have a fellow litigator like you banging away on the Trump administration and federal corruption at the federal court level, which is really the focus. For those that are just hearing about Legal AF YouTube channel, we've got contributors. CAA was like there from day one. They were there from when we had 20,000 subscribers, now 1.12 million subscribers, and Alex and Lisa Graves doing videos with me, and then of course branching out onto their own. But we also have, I don't know, you've probably looked at it too, Somil. We've got Court of History, which is our resident historians, Sidney Blumenthal and Sean Wilentz. They get an amazing, I don't know who gets better guests, CAA. It's a competition. Court of History and CAA. I lag third, but the guests that you guys get are phenomenal, from representatives and authors and Congress people and senators, and all that. So the Court of History, I joke with them that they are sort of our murderers in the building, right, version, except it's Sydney and Sean, and they don't have a young sidekick.
Exactly, right.
Other than that, we got that going on. We've got Adam Klasfeld of All Rise News, which does all his video work with us. ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, your old home, is on with regular programming through us. Democracy Forward. Sky Perryman joins me on a semi-weekly basis. The Democratic Attorneys General. I've had all 24 Democratic Attorneys General on in some capacity. In fact, we just made arrangements. Somil, I don't know if you're going to be out there, but right after Labor Day, they're getting together in Detroit for their next conference where they all get together with their staff, and we'll be there doing one-on-ones and panels with the Democratic Attorneys General. It's the last one before the election, so that'll be a really, and they'll have a lot of elected officials running around in there as well. So
let's go do a show out there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love it. It's my third one. Our audience loves it. It's like exclusive briefing for them about the 100 cases that they've brought and how they're doing. But the reason I'm giving the lineup and the rundown and where CAA fits in is that you guys have that competitive advantage because you're focused on corruption at the federal court level up to the United States Supreme Court and breaking stories in that area. And so all you got to do is go over to the playlist that's in Legal AF YouTube channel. You'll see Court Accountability Action. You'll see all their hundreds and hundreds of videos, soon to be joined by Somil Trivedi. Really glad you joined us, and I look forward to seeing the show at 11 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow on the Legal AF YouTube channel.
That's great. Thank you so much, Michael.
You're welcome. And you're on The Intersection. I'm so glad what an audience tonight, and what a set of guests. Sometimes I have guests, sometimes I don't. Depends on what's happening in the world. But I thought tonight, I've always wanted to get Representative Maxwell Frost on here. Somebody wrote in a question, I just couldn't grab it in time. Will you run for president when you're old enough? That's true. He's not old enough yet. But, when I'm listening to him talk and how his mind works and hearing about him being a community organizer, we had a very successful president once who was a community organizer. Why not a second time? I have no doubt about his future. I think it's bright, and I think our country is better off because he's in Congress and maybe one day in the Senate and beyond. And then we heard more about Court Accountability Action. I've got a number of great episodes, new videos going up tomorrow, including an interview I just did with David Fox, who's a senior partner or litigation partner at Mark Elias's Elias Law Group, to talk about a couple of his Supreme Court cases that just got ruled on, mail-in ballots and about political donations. That's going to be our #1 video tomorrow on the Legal AF YouTube channel. I'm so glad you're all here. Remember to support our show. It's easy. Subscribe to Midas Touch. Subscribe to Legal AF YouTube channel, all for free. Download the audio. Say it with me. For the Intersection podcast, get our numbers up there, and all will be right in the world, at the very least. And this is my last show before the long 3-day weekend in celebration of, and I don't want people to not celebrate because we've got a madman in the White House with something that is our birthright, something that is our right as patriots, not to be forfeited or not to be stolen from us, which is our own personal brand of patriotism. And by keeping that alive and having the counter programming, enjoying your family, and doing all the things that make us Americans, put your arm around somebody who's not in your family, who needs a helping hand or a hug, who may not be from this country, may not even have proper status to be in this country, but wants a dignified path to immigration. Go online and make sure you are registered to vote. Organizations like vote.org will tell you whether you are or you're not. Get that squared away this weekend. Volunteer with one of the groups that have been on Legal AF or the Intersection, or any other group in your community. Pick a civil action group, political action group, a party, a campaign, a voter registration organization, and volunteer your time. If you have money, give them some money. If you don't have money, give them time. And even if you're in a red state, as many of our audience are, you have the right to help campaigns and voter registration and all different things in other states from the comfort of your own home. Or, if you're bored and you want to go vacation somewhere, coordinate with the Democratic Party and go into a state that needs your help to go on the ground for a weekend and knock on doors, or the phone banking equivalent of that. This is the counter programming that matters. Hot dogs, apple pie, ice cream and baseball, whatever it's supposed to be, World Cup, is all great. It's all great. But when that flames out, when the embers of the fireworks are over, make sure that we've progressed our democracy one click forward. And don't let the hand-wringing and the doom scrolling and the sky is falling about some of the United States Supreme Court decisions get you down in the dumps and get you depressed. That's what they want, right? Voter suppression is created by voter depression, and they're trying to depress us. And one of the things I think that comes from being a part of this community and this organization and the Midas Touch world and the Legal AF world is that you have hope, right? You have fellowship. You know that you're not alone. They cannot divide us. And I wish everybody a really happy and healthy 4th of July weekend and counter programming around that. And I'm going to be doing some counter programming on the Legal AF YouTube channel. I'm not ready to announce it yet, but we're going to have a live stream going on Legal AF over the weekend related to the defense of our democracy. I'm glad you're all here. Until my next video, which should be up soon, I'm Michael Popok. Shout out to the Midas Mighty, the Legal AFers, and the Intersectionists. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.